Hi Mia,
Hey, Panna.
how's your day going so far?
Yeah, so far so good, I have to say.
Yeah,
Yes.
what's been the one highlight of your day today?
Well, we're in Manchester, and it was a great place to come to. It's a vibrant city that's full of innovation and opportunity. So I would say the highlight is just being here and being involved.
Yeah, and I obviously live in the US, so anytime I come to the UK, I feel enchanted to an extent. I just feel like there's so much history here, so many unique spots to hit, and yeah, thank you for having me. So, before we dive in, what's something that you learned recently or had to unlearn about yourself as a leader?
Wow. Um, I think the big lesson that is most recent is about patience and thoughtfulness about my team. I really have come to understand that there is a big difference between responsibility and competence. And you can be responsible for something that you're not necessarily the most competent at. And so the ability to distinguish between what you are accountable for and the ability to do that in a good way is very important. So I'm grateful for the realization that I don't have to be great at everything that I'm responsible for. I just have to make sure that it happens, and I have to resource that particular thing with great people.
Yeah, I like that. And during our talks, you've shared powerful reflections like the one about waiting for no gift and the time for African heroes. How have your own parents influenced your view of resilience, ambition, and legacy?
Yeah, I believe this is the time for African heroes. And I consider my mom and dad to be a hero and a heroine. Um, because what they were able to achieve against the harsh backdrop of their realities, both as orphaned children, who really, by all accounts, did not have a great shot at what was going to become their future, bucks that trend. And through the power of education and what that does for people, they've become leaders in society in Zimbabwe in a way that I think matters. And I'm incredibly proud of them, but inspired by the fact that it doesn't matter where you start. You can always make a big difference. So when I say this is the time for African heroes, what I'm saying is we've got to run into the fires that are facing us or confronting us at this moment. We're living in a time where, for the first time in history, children are the most impoverished segment of our communities. We're living in a time where we thought we had eradicated certain diseases, and they're coming back now. And when I think about all of those issues, I get very concerned that nobody, or at least not many people, are motivated or motivating towards solving them forever. And so this is the time to get beyond the politics of the day, to get beyond the theater of the day, and to actually focus on fundamental improvement and change as it pertains to healthcare, as it pertains to security, as it pertains to productivity and innovation.
Yeah. And honestly, when you speak about some of these harsh realities that we face right now, Africa is most, vulnerable to these African children. The rate of child labor in Africa is crazy. And also African women as founders and business owners, African women actually form enterprises at 3 times the rate of their counterparts globally. But female founders in Africa still lag with just 2% of venture capital globally going to women actually globally. So I want to know what this actually means when it comes to a female founder in Africa starting a business and how they can, stand out to investors. What does it mean for investors and for yourself as an angel investor? What makes you lean in when hearing a founder's pitch? And how do storytelling and clarity play into that?
It's a good point that you make, which is the fact that there is an inequality as far as distribution of venture capital and resources is concerned. I worry about that. And I'm interested in how to solve that problem. My observation, having worked with many female founders, many male founders, and as an investor, as you've pointed out, is that I'm not sure they're always telling the most compelling and provocative and engaging story. And so I would say a big part is you can develop a great product, but you can also, with a great product, be relegated to relative obscurity. And so what you need is not just a great product, but you need a great story that comes alongside your product. And you have to be brave and bold enough to be the face of said product.
Yeah.
And to be the evangelist of said story. And I find that my female counterparts and investees often worry that they are not being authentic, they are not being their true selves by fronting their story. And I think I insist now on them doing that, because that's what it takes to become noticeable and become differentiated.
Yeah. So I'm interested to know more about the efforts that founders need to put into their go-to-market strategy. And according to CB Insights, 35% of startups fail due to the market needs. So let's talk about getting into the real need that, satisfies customers and solves a real problem there. Can you walk us through, how a founder should apply demand generation, the hierarchy of demand generation needs when launching, especially with limited resources?
Yeah, so like with anything, startups are like children, actually. That's how I think about them. And all children need a baseline of things that you should do for all of them. You need to give them food, you need to give them shelter, you need to water and feed them and make sure that they're fine. But beyond that, every child is actually unique. And every startup is unique beyond the basics. So when we talk about a hierarchy of needs, what we're saying is, at the baseline, give the startup everything basic: shelter, food, clothing, that any other startup would need. That involves getting the ICP sorted, the ideal customer profile, getting your data and architecture in a structured way. But once you get beyond that point, then it's about how do we design campaigns and effective attempts at capturing the attention of our customers that is unique to our proposition and what we've designed or engineered as an organization. And that's what the last 20% is about. And you don't have to spend a lot of money to make sense of that, but you do need to be very intentional about what you do when you're finding your ideal customer profile and what watering holes they hang out at, and indeed how you approach them. For some organizations, events are very effective. So boutique events, private events, intimate circles. For some people, advertising is the answer. For some people, content is the answer because of what they have engineered or produced as an organization. What you want to do, if you're a GTM leader and a founder, is you want to run a series of experiments that allows you to figure out, are we an event-driven business? Are we a webinar-driven business? Are we a content marketing-driven business? Are we a advertising-driven business? Because any one of those could be the effective channel for you, but unless you run a pivotal set of hypotheses in a test environment, you'll never know. And so that's what I would encourage your founders to think about.
Okay, yeah. And leaning into the intention behind, starting a business, what do you think for you as an investor are some signals a founder should look for that indicate true product market fit? And not just user feedback, but actual traction.
Yeah, so it's a very good question. Product market fit is probably the most important thing that you're trying to figure out when you're early stage. And I have 10 principles that I teach to the companies that I work with, but I'll give you 3 just as a freebie for this podcast. The first is you've got to define what true north looks like. What is your North Star metric? What is the metric that galvanizes the organization and everybody's working to? And when you know what that is, it's very easy to then pull resources and direct focus. The next thing is your magic moment. When somebody does something within your product environment that you believe is indicative of their forecastable opportunity in terms of your pipeline, you should capture that. Know your magic moment and build around it and scaffold it to ensure that every prospect or every customer experiences that magic moment. But finally, your retention curve is what is an early indicator of product market fit. Are you winning customers and keeping them? Or are you winning them and losing them? If you're losing them, you probably don't have product market fit. But if you win them and you retain them to a high degree, it means you've got something the market needs and they're happy with.
Yeah, those are great insights, Munya. So I know you're very passionate about bringing the human into cybersecurity. So let's jump into that a little bit. I think in Africa, digital adoption is rising pretty quickly, but so is vulnerability when it comes to AI and the amount of data it needs to drive meaningful, for business outcomes. There's a lot of data involved. Yet many founders still see data and cybersecurity as a nice to have. You said data is king. For African startups especially, how should they be thinking about data ownership, usage and protection from day one, but also leading the AI environment right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think you've got to be very, very strict about your data hygiene policy. But more importantly, when you talk about the human aspect of cyber risk, you've got to understand that most people don't understand how much risk they're carrying when they're interacting with applications on the web. Many people use the same password across multiple applications. Most people, when they are to change that password, change 1 or 2 characters. Never really a fundamental change in the actual password itself. Very few people use multi-factor authentication, and very, very few people use passphrases or password managers. So we are in a very, very difficult and trying situation because criminals know this. They can brute force their way to find out what your password is. And once they have that, they can use your information to do all kinds of nonsense that's not allowed. So I am extremely concerned about the human aspect of cyber risk. I'm worried about it. I spend a lot of time thinking about it. I write about it extensively because I don't believe that we have really understood the risk we're carrying as organizations or even as individuals when it comes to cyber activity on a personal level. So what should you do? I think you should have definitely policy controls. You should have a policy champion. But more importantly, you should understand that there is no relationship between training and behavior change. You've got to garrison your organization with more than just a webinar about security, more than more than a podcast about security. You've got to have almost a zero trust environment where you assume that everybody's going to screw it up. And then you're going to build the defenses that mean that they cannot screw it up as much as what would hurt the organization. So that's where we are, to be honest.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to, organizational culture and how that really drives the outcomes beyond the sexy work of, going out, talking about the problem or solving, but the actual frameworks that protect our customers. So I think that's really, really important. Talking about, the environment we're in right now, I think there's a lot to be said around mission-led businesses and, really building businesses that solve people's fundamental problems and also raise them to like a higher standard of living.
Right.
So what do you think, that means in terms of driving the bottom line? We all want to do something great for everybody, but what does that really mean for driving that?
I think you've got to think about innovation as an opportunity to do good and make money at the same time.
Yeah.
You don't want to ever be in the position where your benevolence or your conscience as an organization means that you are less profitable or less interesting to the market. What you want is you want both. You want to have a lasting impact that is consequential in terms of good outcomes. It is something that makes people's lives better. It improves the quality of security that surrounds our children, our vulnerable people, our elderly people, but at the same time is incredibly powerful at generating profits and revenue. So I would say to the founder or leadership team that's listening to this, there is a way to chart a path that says we are going to be an ethically consequential organization and still be incredibly profitable, but you have to be intentional about it. That is the key word. Intentionality is at the ground floor of what we're talking about.
So beyond the pitch deck, what shows intentionality for you when interacting with these founders?
I would like to see those founders evangelizing their mission beyond what their product can do. What are you actually achieving? Where are you taking us? What is going to matter in 5 years' time when you've sold your business and you've retired to the Caribbean? Are we going to have cleaner water, better access to energy, clean energy? Are we going to have more people in school? Are we going to have better healthcare outcomes for the vulnerable? Tell us more about what matters about what you're doing right now, and we will support you and we will reward you with revenue.
Okay, all right, I love that. Where can these founders find these resources where they can get supported, either directly by you or,
Or they would have to come and see me. That's probably the answer that I have about me. But unfortunately, I'm not the only one that's caring about this. There are communities like Pavilion, for example, where go-to-market leaders gather and think deeply about consequence. And I think this is what matters to me.
Okay. So we've spoken about a lot today, and I've had the privilege of really getting to know your day to day. But I'm also wondering where we can find that synergy. Like, where do you think everything is going? Well, not everything per se, because you can never really tell, but what's exciting you about the future? What are you excited to do next? What's something that, if it comes on your table right now, you literally jump at it?
I am extremely excited about the prospect of the democratization of knowledge and understanding because of the proliferation of the internet. Starlink is doing something that I think is going to change the game globally. Right now, we have the same access to knowledge and information if you're in a village in rural Zimbabwe as you are in Manhattan, New York. This matters because it means that we can enable and equip thousands, maybe millions more people to contribute to the body of knowledge, to be equipped with the insights and knowledge and understanding that makes the world a better place. So I'm excited about the proliferation of the accessibility to internet. Alongside that, I am extremely emboldened by generative AI. I am fascinated by the opportunity that arises from the ability to process data and insights and content faster than we ever have been able to do before, which means that we will be able to do more with less, which ultimately I believe should lead to us having more to invest in the vulnerable corners of our societies. We should be able to put more people through school that couldn't afford it. We should be able to care for more people that have health issues that were not able to do it. We should be able to learn more about space and what other planets and what opportunities those hold for us. So I'm extremely, optimistic and perhaps even aggressive about AI, about the proliferation of the internet, and about the capacity of human potential. Because with democratization of access to information and tools and systems and education, we have no idea what we can do. And that is exciting to me.
So I'm very interested. My personal philosophy that really got me to where I am now is the importance of me making decisions versus always trying to influence someone else or the rest of the world to do something, but lean into what am I doing on a day-to-day basis? What are my personal responsibilities to see through what I would like the world to look like? And I want to know, like on a personal basis for you, what is that day-to-day effort that you make, or even if it's not day to day, but what was that turning point where you reflected in and decided, this is what I need to do to see things forward?
Yeah, and in particular, Black folks who have done amazing things. I most recently read Bosma St. John's book, and that was extraordinary and hugely insightful for me. But that's what I do. I read. I train almost on a daily basis. I like to stay fit. And it helps me to recalibrate my elements and remind me that I'm a tenant in this body, and one day my tenancy will expire and I will have to move on. But while I'm in the house, I'm going to look after it. I'm going to keep it clean. I'm going to keep it healthy, and I'm going to keep it strong. Beyond that, I would say the most powerful thing that has helped me to really refine my perspective on the future is community and network. When you meet interesting people, don't let them escape your grasp without asking an important or consequential question. Press them. Really, really lean in to their knowledge and their experience and their understanding, because you can either gain wisdom in two ways. You can buy it or you can borrow it. The price to buy it is often very high. It means your own self-sacrifice, your own time. But borrowing is easy. You can skip the buying, the pain, the difficulty, and just borrow it from their knowledge and understanding by sitting with them closely and listening to what they have to say. And I would say that has been an incredible boon to what I would consider success.
Yeah. I'm also particularly fascinated by, the 80-20 goal. And to anyone who doesn't know what that means, is basically 20% of your effort drives 80% of the outcomes or of the results. So, I really appreciate the aspect of, continuously learning that she spoke about in terms of leading from people, especially. I think sometimes you often see learning as institutionalized in a building somewhere, which is just not real, especially if you're trying to engage with people to solve their problems. So what does that 80-20 look like for you on a day-to-day basis?
I would say it's less about what it looks like for me and more about how I apply that to the people that I work with.
Okay.
I try very hard to compel them to the same philosophy or idea, which is, where can you be positioned for maximum impact? And how do we take everything away from you that doesn't achieve that level of outcome or success? And so what I allow to bother me on an ongoing basis is the question, have I deployed the right resources at the right place all the time? And when I feel like I haven't, I get involved, I get in the detail. But where I have, I leave those people to execute, because they're my 20%, but it's their 80%. And this is what matters.
Yeah. So when you talk about, teams and being able to manage efficiently so that happens, what should founders that have, grown beyond just being one person team and have grown or are growing their team, what should they be looking for? And how, should they be looking for that team that gets them further along?
I agree. I think what you want in all of your people is a level of curiosity and tenacity. Those two are probably more important than even, timeliness or hygiene or whatever. You want people that are obsessed with the opportunity you have at hand. And you want them, outside of what you have told them to do, to be voracious and hungry for pushing the boundary of the definition of what you've asked them to do, and to deliver that to an extremely high standard. I say, for most people, excellence at the operational level is exactly what is missing. We have too much mediocrity in business today. Too many people hiding behind a desk or an office. What I want is a small team of highly capable, operationally excellent individuals who are experiencing, through my leadership and my teams, a level of autonomy, mastery, and purpose that means that they will never want another job ever again.
Yeah. Well, this has been such an insightful conversation, and I've really enjoyed spending, this time getting to know you. And honestly, I will say there's very few people who display, that level of excellence and thoughtfulness that you put into everything that you do. So I really appreciate you coming on.
No, Bobby.
And yeah, let's keep the conversation going. Where can people connect with you if they want to know more?
They're going to find me on LinkedIn. They're going to find me on Twitter. I rattle off my thoughts. But more importantly, I'm around.
Okay.
Reach out and I'll respond.
Perfect. Thank you guys for joining us today on this episode of C-Suite Lounge, and we'll see you next time.